Okay, so what if the end of the world wasn't some random accident, but a meticulously planned event? We're about to walk through a really fascinating and super detailed timeline. We're talking total global destruction to a dramatic last-minute rescue, all based on one specific theological interpretation of Earth's final days. Wow. Okay, so the starting point for this whole timeline is, well, it's an image of total annihilation. The prophecy is just so stark, right? The world as we know it, destroyed by fire. This really sets up the fundamental problem that's going to need a solution, and the stakes just could not be any higher. And this is where this whole framework gets really, really interesting. It actually connects that ancient prophecy with a very modern scientific warning. So on one hand, you've got scripture predicting the world will basically dissolve in intense heat, but then on the other hand, you have someone like Stephen Hawking arguing that humanity's only hope is to get off the planet. You see, it's two totally different perspectives pointing to the exact same terrifying conclusion. Earth has an expiration date. So, okay, if the planet is doomed, how do you get out? What's the escape plan? Well, this framework argues that the answer isn't some kind of spaceship that we build ourselves. Nope. It's a divine evacuation plan, an event known as the Rapture. All right, so what is the rapture exactly? Well, to put it simply, it's the moment believers are physically, caught up from the earth to meet Jesus Christ in the sky. And let's be clear, this isn't some kind of metaphor. It's described as a literal physical departure from the planet. But, this whole idea raises a really fundamental question. In this specific timeline, why is such a dramatic event even necessary? Why does this have to happen? Well, the source material actually gives us three core reasons. Okay, so first off, it's about salvation. It's about rescuing believers from that fiery end of the planet we were just talking about. The second reason, it's kind of like an official welcome party. The returning Messiah is supposed to be greeted in the air, not on a world that's literally collapsing. And the final reason is all about making a clean slate. The old world has to be totally cleared away to make room for a brand new divine creation. So all of this builds into a very, very specific timeline. The source lays out this incredibly detailed sequence of events for the final days, and it's all centered on a period called the 7-year tribulation. This whole period unfolds through 3 escalating calamities, which are called woes. The first one is a 5-month torment. Then, at the midpoint, the second woe hits, and it's interpreted as a nuclear war that wipes out a third of humanity. But here's the crucial part. You really got to look closely at the timing. In this view, the rapture doesn't happen at the beginning of all this. No, it happens after all that devastation, but just before the final absolute worst judgment is unleashed. And this is the climax of the tribulation, what's called the 7 bowls judgment. Think of it as the final act. It's described as this rapid-fire series of cataclysms just poured out onto the earth. And we're not talking small stuff here. We're talking about judgments so powerful, they completely dismantle the planet, leveling cities and literally wiping every single island and mountain right off the map. Okay, so while all of that is happening, while the planet is undergoing this final violent transformation, you have to wonder, where are all the people who were taken up in the rapture? What are they experiencing? Well, the source identifies their destination as a place called the Sea of Glass. It's described as this vast, calm, transparent place up in the heavens. Now, what's really crucial to understand is that this is not heaven itself. It's more like a specially prepared, temporary safe harbor where believers gather while that final judgment on earth concludes. And while they're gathered here, safely watching Earth's final moments from a distance, they're described as holding harps and singing 2 very specific songs from the Bible that celebrate victory and deliverance: the Song of Moses and the Song of the Lamb. It's just a scene of pure worship and praise. And the timeline here gets incredibly specific. This isn't some vague, indefinite waiting period. Nope. It's calculated to be exactly 75 days. And that, apparently, is the precise amount of time that's needed for the old Earth to be completely destroyed and for the new one to be created from scratch. All right, this brings us to the final phase of the whole narrative. What happens after the judgment is totally complete and those 75 days are finally over? Well, it's the beginning of a completely new era. So after those 75 days are up, when the old world is completely gone, the people who were at the Sea of Glass, they descend with Jesus to a newly remade earth. And this is what kicks off the Millennial Kingdom, a prophesied 1,000-year reign of peace. And the contrast between these two worlds is is just stark. It's like night and day. The old world is described as this place of curses, of hard labor, of death, all built by human efforts. The new kingdom, though? It's described as a world created directly by divine power, completely free from curses, where people can live for 1,000 years. A total reset. So after laying out this entire super detailed timeline, from total destruction all the way to recreation, what's the crucial takeaway? What's the central theme here? What's the core message of this whole narrative? Well, it really boils down to this. It's a story of an ultimate crisis being met by a divine rescue. It draws a really clear line in the sand between humanity trying to engineer its own survival, building spaceships to flee to another planet, and a salvation that comes from a higher power. So ultimately, in this worldview, survival isn't an act of engineering, it's an act of faith. And that really leaves us with one last big question to think about. Whether these escape plans are theological, like the one we just explored, or technological, how do these powerful narratives, these stories about escaping a dying world to find a promised new beginning, how do they shape the way we think about our collective future and our own place within?